Ben was the wildest horse in the entire land. No one could touch him. No one could ride him. No one came near him without getting hurt. The chief promised 10 million to anyone who could stay on Ben's back. Strong men failed. Warriors fell. The village laughed at the attempt, until an invisible orphan girl stepped forward, barefoot, fragile, overlooked, mocked. She walked straight toward Ben. And what happened next turned the entire village upside down. A monster fell silent, a child was seen, and a test of courage became a story no one would ever forget. She was the child no one ever saw, a shadow drifting between the market stalls, barefoot, thin as a dried twig, her hair matted with the dust of forgotten days. No one knew where she came from. No one asked her name. They simply called her the girl. A word without meaning, a life without weight. When she moved through the crowd, people looked straight through her as if she were made of air. Some tossed her a shriveled fruit. Others shooed her away like a stray dog. For her, invisibility wasn't a condition. It was survival. Every morning she slipped across the marketplace. The sounds were loud, merchants shouting, pots clattering, children laughing. But to her ears, everything sounded distant, muffled, as if the world were wrapped in cotton. She moved carefully, silently, so no one would chase her off. Her stomach often burned with hunger. But the hunger wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the truth she could never escape, that no one on this earth would miss her if she disappeared. At the edge of the village stood the chief's ranch, a place spoken of with reverent tones. That was where Ben lived, the horse that had become a legend, the horse that made men stumble before they even reached the saddle. Powerful as a storm, black as a moonless night, with eyes that looked as if they had seen too many shadows. Villagers whispered stories about him, that he was cursed, that no human could ever tame him, that he sensed souls and pushed them away like a dark mirror. Many had tried to ride him, warriors, merchants, strangers from distant lands. No one stayed on his back for longer than a few seconds. Ben threw every rider to the ground. Some were carried away with broken bones. No one approached him anymore except the men who fed him, and even they did so with caution, as if standing before living lightning. So the chief did something that shocked the entire village. He placed a bounty. 10 million. For the one who could ride Ben. The market exploded with rumors. Men boasted loudly but went silent whenever they looked toward the ranch. Children ran through the streets shouting, 10 million, 10 million, who dares? The adults laughed nervously. And the girl? She heard it. She heard every word. But inside her the number meant nothing. No wonder. No hope. Something else moved her. When she later stood by the fence of the ranch, she saw Ben for the first time. He was bigger than she expected, stronger, more restless. His coat shimmered in the light like liquid shadow. He stomped, snorted, threw his head. Every muscle seemed carved from mistrust. But when he paused for a brief moment and lifted his head, their eyes met. And in his eyes she saw something she recognized. Not rage, not wild fury, but the same loneliness that lived within her, the same deep, quiet wound. And Ben saw something in her that he had never found in humans. No threat, no demand, only a wounded heart that resembled his own darkness. It was a moment, a breath, a silent recognition between two souls the world had already given up on, the invisible girl and the cursed horse. Two lost beings who for the first time truly saw each other in the midst of the noise. The square at the center of the village was overflowing with people. Merchants stood beside warriors. Children pushed to the front. Women clutched their shawls as if something sacred or dangerous was about to happen. Then the chief stepped forward, tall, loud, proud. He raised his hands, and instantly the chaos fell silent. Whoever rides Ben will receive 10 million. His voice echoed over the rooftops as if the sky itself had spoken. For a heartbeat, there was absolute stillness. Then laughter erupted, uneven, harsh, mocking. The warriors laughed the loudest. Men who wore scars like medals slapped each other on the shoulders. 10 million for a death sentence? The chief has lost his mind. Ben throws off even the wind. The women shook their heads. Some men, however, stayed quiet, not out of courage, but out of fear. Everyone in the village knew what Ben could do. Everyone knew someone he had smashed to the ground. Many had heard the horse snorting in the night, as if speaking to spirits only he could see. The chief let the crowd laugh, but behind his broad grin lived something serious, a flicker in his eyes. Maybe arrogance, maybe exhaustion, maybe a secret hope that somewhere there existed someone who could understand Ben. Yet no one stepped forward, not a single man, not a single warrior, not a single stranger, until a small, thin shadow moved. The orphan girl, barefoot, silent, invisible, until this very moment. The crowd gasped as if the air had been sucked out of the village. Curses mixed with shocked whispers. What is she doing? Get that child out of here. This is madness. She'll die. The chief barked a cruel laugh. You want to ride Ben? His voice trembled between mockery and disbelief. But when the girl didn't step back, didn't blink even once, his laughter froze. He saw something in her that unsettled him. A stillness, a depth, a quiet resolve stronger than the noise around her. Then go, he said at last. And she went. Barefoot, she stepped into the pen. The ground was warm, dust curled around her ankles. Ben turned his head instantly. His nostrils flared. His chest rose like a dark wave of shadow. He struck the ground with his hooves. The boards trembled. His mane whipped through the air like black smoke. The crowd recoiled. But the girl did not move. Her breath was steady. Her shoulders relaxed. She did not lift her hands. She did not speak. Ben raged, stomped, snorted, a storm of muscle, pain, and memory. But she did not retreat. And then it happened. A brief moment, a look, a recognition. Ben froze, his eyes locked onto hers, and something inside them shifted, barely visible but deep. His breathing slowed, his head lowered, first just a little, then more, until his muzzle nearly touched her chest. The crowd erupted in screams, but no one understood what they were witnessing. A girl nobody wanted, a horse nobody survived, and a silence more powerful than any force. The chief stood frozen, because in that moment the impossible happened. Ben, the cursed one, the untamable, almost knelt before her, and the village realized this was not courage, not recklessness, not madness. It was pain recognizing pain, and trust being born where no one had ever expected to find it. The wind stood still, as if nature itself had stopped breathing. Ben scraped his hooves against the ground, the earth vibrating beneath his weight. Dust coiled around his legs like a growing storm. The orphan girl stood directly before him, barefoot in the sand, so thin she almost looked transparent in the light, and yet she was the only one who did not step back. Then she slowly raised her hand. No trembling, no fear, only a quiet, endless courage. The crowd erupted in screams. She's going to die. Get the child out of there. The beast will crush her. But no one dared to move between them, because something sacred lived in that silence. Ben breathed heavily. The muscles in his neck twitched. His tail lashed through the air like a spark before a fire. And then something happened that no one had ever believed possible. He lowered his head, not as deeply as before. This time it was different. This time it was an invitation. The girl understood, not because anyone had taught her, not because she was braver than the men around her, but because pain recognizes pain, and trust grows where wounded souls touch. She placed her fingers in Ben's mane. A whisper drifted through the crowd. a murmur, a shiver, and then she did the unthinkable. She pulled herself up along his neck and swung onto his back, slowly, softly, like a breath. The world froze. Ben reared instantly. A violent jolt tore through his body. His front hooves crashed into the air, dust exploded at the ground. Screams mixed with the thunder of his hooves. But the girl did not fall. She didn't even cling tightly. She simply leaned forward and gently placed her small hand on his neck, not out of fear but out of trust. Ben came down. He blinked. Step by step his body grew calmer. The storm became wind. The wind became breath. And suddenly he stood still, a thin, invisible girl, on the wildest horse the land had ever known. The crowd froze, even the chief. He no longer saw the barefoot child begging for scraps. He saw a girl greater than any warrior he had ever known, a heart stronger than any hand that had tried to break Ben. Slowly he stepped forward, his voice rough, for the first time without hardness. "You will have the 10 million. They are yours." The girl shook her head. Her eyes shone, not with greed but with truth. "I don't want wealth," she whispered. "I want a place where I am no longer invisible." Those words cut through the chief's heart, like a mirror showing every mistake he had ever made. He lowered his head. It was not he who gave her something. It was she who returned something to him. Ben snorted as if he understood, and the girl no one wanted to see finally watched her own life begin, not with money, not with glory, but with a place that belonged to her, because she had claimed it herself, with courage, dignity, and a trust strong enough to change the world. Sometimes it isn't a warrior who changes the world, not a hero, not a leader. Sometimes it is a child no one saw, no one knew, no one ever took seriously. A girl who had no voice until she found the courage to trust a wild heart. Ben was never tamed. Ben was understood, and the girl was no longer overlooked. She was seen, heard, felt. Two beings the world had given up on suddenly found the one place they could both call home, each other. This story reminds us, sometimes you don't need strength or size or wealth to do something extraordinary. You only need courage. Courage to take a step no one expects from you. If this story touched you, tell me in the comments. What moment in your life made you feel that you are more than others ever saw in you? Your words might give courage to someone who has lost theirs. Share this video with someone who needs to remember that true strength begins quietly. And if you love true, deep, and soulful stories, subscribe to Zeitgeist Stories. Here we don't just tell stories, we remind you of what has always lived inside you. Spirit to spirit.